Namaskaram. From today, we'll be starting within the kids series, a kids short, so that we can keep things short and sweet for the tinier of the kids amongst us, by which, of course, we mean who are even more kindergartenish in their spiritual path, so that they can allocate even the little time that they can spare out of their worldly activities towards this end. And it's a wonderful day. We are starting this on ananta-padma-nābha Swami's vratā day, Thiruvananthapuram temple, then you have Srirangam temple, Pallikonda in Velur district of Tamil Nadu, and Kalkunte right here close to my home near Vartur, and many other places have this posture of the reclining viśnū on the Adi Ananta Sesha and floating over the Milky Ocean. And this is a beautiful picturization of our own everythingness in yogic slumber, what we call as yoga nidra, and being carried by Adi Ananta Sesha, which refers to the oneness of the entire range from minus infinity, that is Adi, to Ananta, which is no end, so plus infinity, and Shesha, the remainder, which is in between them, which is all of the finitude. So right from minus infinity to plus infinity, everything in between included in it. And so that is what is carrying our own everythingness, and that's the importance of the number system in our whole approach over here. And in the same system of numbers, we have the numbering of the chakras, right from the Mooladhara to the Swadhisthana, Manipuraka, Anahata, Vishuddhi, Agnya, Sahasra-nāmā, Matrupitru, and the Guru Gayatri, these 9 chakras. And so when we have any shloka, we can take it up and down through this whole process, and that deepens our involvement with the shloka. Many people just chant the shlokas out of bhakti. That is one way of gaining into spirituality, but you can get a far more deeper thing when you reinforce that bhakti along with jnana and along with the Raja Yoga that we are doing here, and in a karmic sense of the Hatha Yoga, where we are sitting in a still yoga position. It could be a Vajrasana, Padmasana, Siddhasana, or Ardha Siddhasana, as I am sitting in, with the left heel, the Achilles heel, at the Mooladhara chakra mapped to the physical body. So everything that we observe and witness is in the body, which is subtle, which means it is kind of quasi-physical, it is pseudo-physical. So in the sense that anything physical is supposed to have boundaries, like our physical body, but that which is subtle, like our mind and intellect put together, what we call as the subtle body, doesn't actually have a boundary because it's not physical. But since we imagine it to be somewhat similar to our body, that is physicality, therefore these fluids, which are essentially also the energy, the fire that is involved, essentially like a fire, it takes any shape as it burns, right? Similarly, a fluid takes any shape of the container or the path of flow that it has. And so the boundaries are not actually present as a natural characteristic of the fluid, but just because of the way we contain it or way we make it flow, it tends to take a shape and size and therefore a boundary. And that is essentially what we are doing with our emotions and with our thoughts. These emotions and thoughts, which are the material out of which, material within quotes, out of which the subtle body is constructed, the mind and the intellect respectively. Now, as these subside, the size, we go to size 0, and then as we expand these emotions and thoughts in a chain or multiple of them simultaneously unconnected with each other, then it tends to take a size and shape which could either be smaller than the body or even be bigger than the physical body, but essentially still centered within us, hopefully, unless we have either become schizophrenic or possessed, when we can have multiple centers of existence. Now, this being the situation, we need to explore how we can utilize some of these shlokas, and today being Ananta-Padma-nābha Swami's vratā, and tomorrow being Ananta Hunnime, which is the Paurnami associated with the concept of Ananta or unending nature of the Padmanabha Swami, who is lying down in yogic nidra, which is essentially our own everythingness, as I've always been telling you, which is fully satisfied with the preservation, maintenance, and sustenance that's its portfolios, and therefore is doing it out of total relaxation. So this is a relaxation with awareness, unlike the regular deep sleep that we get into hopefully every night, is one which has deep relaxation but no awareness. Here we are trying to have both, and that is what Yoga Nidra is all about. And viśnū in the form of Ananta-Padma-nābha Swami is essentially in that Yoga Nidra all the time, which means that not a particular God somewhere far away, but essentially when we are operating out of our heart chakra, it is what happens, and we get into a total relaxation because we have gotten rid of not only the tamasic gunas below the Muladhara, but the rajasic gunas of our passion and aggression as well, and which is why we see this whole process is so beautiful, that in the purity and the peace of sattva we are operating, and therefore we can explore this. So in the viśnū sahasra-nāmā, which is a part of the Mahabharata, when Bhishma is lying down on a bed of arrows created for him by Arjuna, who has put him to close to mortality, a near-death experience in DE, and Bhishma, having been a great sadhak throughout his life and a brahmachari, though many people have conflict with that, and they say that he used to burn the yajna fire or homa at home, which means he should have had a wife and things like that. Anyway, that's besides the point, but essentially he was into spiritual practice, and whether one is a grihastha that's married or a brahmachari who is unmarried, single, bachelor, it doesn't matter, because it's essentially an individual process. And that spiritual evolution within him gave him the opportunity to choose his death when he could, and therefore he waited for Uttarayana, or the period between mid-January to mid-July, the period during which Mahashivaratri also happens, and he essentially wanted to his prana to leave his body during that period of time, and therefore when he was lying like that, at that time Krishna asks Bhishma to give a sermon to the Pandavas, in particular to Yudhishthira, who is going to become a king soon, and therefore Bhishma tells out 1008 names of Viśnū, and in the middle of that there are a few shlokas which are of great significance. One that everybody remembers because we are in the fast food generation is the Shri Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasra-nāmā Tattulyam Rama Nama Varanane, which is so popular because just chanting that is equivalent to chanting the entire 1008 names, according to our own nothingness Shiva, who joins this whole episode from Mount Kailash, that is essentially means our Sahasrara chakra. Vaikuntha means our Anahata chakra. These are just esoteric names given to make our imagination run wild, and therefore get more and more engrossed in it emotionally in particular, and to some extent intellectually as well. But we need to always come back to our core and recognize that these are all part of our subtle causal bodies, can therefore be mapped to the physical body as well, a conformal mapping, as mathematicians would know. And when we do this, we are having actually really wonderful time, and we will be able to do what is known as the Sānkhya yoga, or the integral yoga of combining karma with bhakti, with the jnana, and with the Raja Yoga simultaneously. And this is what I would like to do with the other very popular shloka, or set of names from the sahasra-nāmā, of the 1008 names of our own everythingness, Viśnū. So we will now see how we can tune this with the chakras, the Kundalini flow. And so I would require you now to start with 3 chants of Om. So already with these 3 chants of Om, you have observed the flow of the Kundalini from the Mooladhara all the way to the Guru Gayatri Chakra and back in between the 2 Oms when you are doing the inhalation once again. So you would have seen that this is something that happens almost automatically when many of the esoteric mantras are chanted, because that's how they are designed. So whether we know it or not, like before or after Newton, whether we know about gravity, whether we have studied physics or not, we would experience it in real life. It's the same thing over here. So we will take up this mantra called Shantakaram Bhujagasayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasadrusham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalanayanam Yogi Vidyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavabhayaharam Sarvalokaika Natham. And we will repeat this a few times to deepen the whole practice. But what is important is, unlike anybody else who chants this, we are going to tune it with our chakra system, and therefore recognize the significance of each of these names. And so bring your attention to the base of your spine, that is between your anus and your genitals, which is the starting point of the spinal cord in the physical body, but there is an exact mapping from there to the subtle body, which we call as the Mooladhara chakra. So there you think of the concept of Shantakaram, that is the fact that we are peaceful and we have a form made out of that peace, our peace body, so to speak, and that is centered at the Mooladhara chakra. So just observe the breath pattern as you look at the Mooladhara with a complete open mind, which means that you are just a witness to what's happening. Shantakaram, your own form of peace that you, I, and everyone around us is. Well, that's a potency, that's a capability, that's a latency, whether we operate out of it or not. Different situations and how we either respond or react to situations determines that. If we respond, we can still be peaceful, and that's Shantakaram. Now you take your attention slowly to the region just below the navel, about an inch or 2 below the navel, and right at the back in the spinal cord of the physical body. Then map it over to the subtle body, that is your mind and intellect, and there you would see the Svadhisthana chakra being established in the self, and that's where we see Bhujaga Shayanam. Bhujaga essentially means the snake, the Adi Ananta Sesha, and Shayanam means lying down on it, taking a yoga nidra on it. And here we are talking of the Swadhisthana chakra, which is associated with our reproductive system in the physical body. And the snake is something that is said to have a very high fertility rate and is associated with that. But for those of us more into the spiritual path, we are now focusing not on the physical body and the reproductive system, but on the subtle body and the Swadhisthana chakra, where that same very snake, which in physicality was said to have fertility, that fertility is in terms of the mysticism as well, because it is able to have a very clear perception, and out of that clear perception, it is able to act with a fertile imagination, and that imagination leads not just to kalpa but to sankalpa, and that is our bhujagasayanam. That is essentially our ability to perceive things as clearly as possible and keep enhancing that clarity further and further through our deeper practices, and therefore acting out of that mysticism and the ability to handle anything and everything that comes our way with valor and courage, in spite of ourselves being in Shantakaram already and now Bhujaga Shayanam. That means peace is a prerequisite to sleep. If you are not peaceful, you will be in insomnia, you will not be able to sleep. So once peace has been established, then getting into sleep or yoga nidra or a meditation is much easier, and that's where the stage we have come to, from Shantakaram to Bhujagashayanam. That is, we are associated with the snake, with the minus infinity to plus infinity range, and everything in between as well. We are able to perceive it all, and that's not possible with our physical eyes or putting together all of the 5 sets of sense organs also. We have to get into our intuitive state of mind, and that's why Muruga here has the veil from the third eye, Parvati, the peaking of our celebration, and that veil is Jnana Shakti, or the ability to see through things out of knowledge and wisdom. Jnana is knowledge and Vijnana is wisdom or science, and that scientific perceptivity, scientific inquisitiveness leads us to perceive things with total attention, and therefore we are able to do what is known as Bhujagashayanam, that is, rest or be founded upon or be constructed over our own clarity of perception, and therefore in utter peace, taking a deep restfulness and relaxation while retaining our awareness. So that is a very, very rare combination. Many people in many situations are very aware but not relaxed, they are tense, and some others are very tense, are very relaxed, but they may not have the awareness. And here it's golden mean between them, trying to have both of that, that is Bhujagashayanam. Now we take our attention a little further up to the navel. The navel chakra is called as the Manipura chakra, and here we look at the third name, Padma-nābha, and Nabha means navel, and navel is the point in the physical body through which we were connected with our mother in the umbilical cord while we were in our womb, and once she delivered us, we got that umbilical cord cut by whoever helped with that delivery, and since then we have been imagining ourselves to be an independent individual, indivisible. Well, that's as far as imagination goes. It's really creative, but what we are talking about here is Padma-nābha. That is essentially, the Nabha represents our past, our connection with our mother, who is our source and therefore our past. It's a part of the history that that is associated with us, and that has been cut, and for the right reasons, because though memory and what we learn out of it is very useful, we should not be carrying it all the time, like carrying our own baggage on the flight. We put it either under our seat or in the compartment for the luggage, cabin baggage overhead above the seats. It's stupid to continue to carry it, especially heavy baggages. And what this states is that we, at our Nabhi, we are like Padma, and Padma is a lotus, which is essentially growing in the worst kind of environments, but still not attached or connected to that, taking the nutrition from them out of full gratitude and giving them the fragrance, giving them the beauty, giving them more value than what they would be just as they are dirt, but essentially being dispassionate about them, the vairagya that is there. So this vairagya about the past is very essential for us to be able to transcend our rajasic gunas and eventually go to the sattvic gunas. So that is what Padma-nābha is all about. Our own ability to be dispassionate about the past, utilize memory only as and when required for a learning possibility, but not as a heavy baggage to be carried all the time. That is the concept of Padma-nābha. By Nabhi we mean history or past, and by Padma we mean the vairagya or the dispassion. So recognize your dispassion and recognize your history and the memory of that as important for learning lessons to how to handle the situations currently or in the future, but not to be something that we should be burdened with all the time. Next we come to the Anahata Chakra, Suresham. Isha is lordship and Sur is over the melody, over the voice, and Suresha is essentially our ability to handle our speech, because our next stage, see, already at Padma-nābha we were preparing to go from Rajas to Sattva. We have already arrived at the most basic form of Sattva, but now we are training ourselves to go to the next level, which is about Sur, the voice, the music, the art, and we want to keep our vocals under our lordship, and our means of course the Parabrahman and the life energy or prana associated with it. So that Brahman is our Atma, and that prana is our life energy or vital energy, the breath. And this is the breath center as well. So we are talking about the Suresha concept over here, to recognize how we have the ability to handle our speech. Our speech should be such that we are not silent when it's supposed to be spoken, and we are not speaking when it's supposed to be silent. We should know when to speak, how much to speak, and whether whatever we are speaking is of significance to somebody who is either hearing it now or hearing it in a recorded version, like what the way I'm sharing this whole knowledge and wisdom with you. A knowledge and wisdom that does not belong to me, but belongs to you as much as it belongs to me and to everyone in the past, in the present, and more so in the future. And that knowledge and wisdom is what I'm sharing. So the ability to utilize our voice, the great gift that we have for the higher purposes of spirituality, science, etc. That's essentially what the Suresha Tattva is all about. So now let's go back and understand Shantakaram, Bhujagasayanam, Padmanabham, Suresham, and these are the first four names. And so let's meditate on the movement of Kundalini from the Muladhara to the Anahata, gradually as we recite these names. Shantakaram bhujagashayanam padmanabham suresham. Shantakaram bhujagashayanam padmanabham suresham. Shantakaram bhujagashayanam padmanabham suresham. Shantakaram bhujagashayanam padmanabham suresham. So we will stop at this stage for today, and we will continue with this tomorrow for the Anantana Hunnime, where we will take this whole shloka to the higher levels in terms of the vertical positioning. But all of these are equally important, as I've been telling you quite frequently, as building blocks. The alphabet is as important as the words that you make out of it, and the sentences that you make out of it, the paragraphs that you make out of it, the essay that you make out of it, the book that you make out of it, and the library that you make out of it. So the libraries contain the same alphabet that you learned at the Muladhara. So it's not that the alphabet is useless or of less significance compared to the library. Without the alphabet, the library would not exist. And it's to create that library that we are creating these alphabet in different languages, and the alphabet tends to come together in various ways to go up over there, like the Lego building blocks. So with this, we will come to an end with today's meditation. We have been able to raise the Kundalini Shakti using these 4 wonderful names of our own everythingness, recognizing our peace, recognizing our ability to perceive things, and therefore have restfulness and relaxation in spite of being rajasic, full of activity, maintenance, sustenance, preservation, and still in yoga nidra. And then we talked about how we can utilize memories of our own history. Thankfully, most of us do not remember the past beyond our birth, or even for quite some days after our birth. I mean, the past lives we don't have a memory of. Very good. But even the few memories that we have of this life are becoming a big burden for people, only because they are not using it for a learning purpose. Instead, they are using it as a burden. And so Padmanabha is about getting that vairagya and dispassion and getting over all of that. And Suresham, we saw, is the ability to utilize our ability of communication, oral communication in particular, but communication of all kinds, for the higher purposes or evolution of the whole of life within us and around us. So with this, we will chant 3 aums and conclude today's meditation. Namaskaram.